place from all organizations.
The most effective intelligence is human intelligence. That's what separates us from the crowd. An SF team is trained not only to talk to people, but then listen to them and bring that picture together and synchronize that. We do this better than anybody.
Gathering that information through fostering trust and a respectful environment with those local populations, really getting a lot of great information that other organizations will not.
Nothing can replace a guy that can gain access to a village on the side of a mountain in Afghanistan. There is no technological advancement that could go in and talk to a village elder. The children who don't know how to lie.
Hey, little buddy.
And the women who will tell you what they think can only be done one way, with boots on the ground.
And there is a snowball effect about how intel can gradually get bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden it rolls into something that's very important. It's an ongoing process. It never stops. It absolutely never stops. And even the most seeming mundane detail, a lot of cases, adds up to something important.
We can base so many different operations off the intelligence we get. We can continue that snowball effect or that leapfrog effect and continue to get those key personalities. Never do you want to go in and just blow up a target.
A lot of targets do turn up a lot of good intelligence, and in the exploitation process is very important. We are definitely disrupting the network.
Getting into areas where other people can't get in and getting intelligence real time, being able to act upon it in a time-sensitive manner.
We action it almost immediately. If you don't action it right away, the intel picture will change. We're focusing on cell phones, computers, anything written, any kind of propaganda. We're looking at picking up video, CDs.
Start networking those plans together, putting names to faces, putting names to computers, and we can start breaking down those insurgent organizations and stopping their plans before they happen.
Intelligence drives the train. I mean, it has to.
My kids are what get me up every day to go to work, because my kids are my future. They're the future of this country, and I know if I'm not out there doing this job, that eventually they're going to have to do it.
A lot of the information that we get out of Afghanistan is directly tied to the United States. Guys that are in Afghanistan, guys that are tied to Iraq, that are planning things in Europe, that are planning things in America, and we would not have access to that information if we weren't there.
With Green Berets being on the ground overseas, we have had great success with electronic forensics. What that does is give us the ability to tie up those insurgent organizations. They cannot use that plan that they were going to do. Now they have to come up with another one. That takes a great deal of time. That takes a great deal of resources. That takes a great deal of financial support.
Political leaders and the American public as a whole need to recognize how important the intel gathering process is. It is not only putting those bad guys behind bars or killing them, but shutting down that entire network, preventing a devastating attack, another devastating attack on American soil.
In order to prevent such attacks like 9/11, we have to pay attention to intel that Special Forces teams are getting. Some of that intel is going to tell us what's going on in the United States.
We don't want the organization or the enemy to get at such a level that it starts flowing out of that country and into this one.
Our global deployment makes America safe. The best defense is a good offense. I mean, we're going out there and taking it to them in their home turf, project ourselves forward into these areas, root them out, and take them to task right there in these countries that we're in.
The deployment of Green Berets overseas protects the homeland to attack the infrastructures of these insurgent organizations, going after the planners, the financiers, and everything else that we're finding all over the country, whether it be from good citizens bringing us the information or finding it on target.
Maybe gathering intelligence that they put dots together and they figure out, that there's a cell operating somewhere. It takes them off their game. It's like getting a linebacker into the backfield for a running back. It throws him off of his route. So once you get into their game, they have to change their tactics.
Go after them where it hurts them the most. Go over there and take these guys out where they're taught, where they're trained, and show them that we're not going to tolerate it.
Obviously, the ideal is to find out about these plots well in advance. It's a process that doesn't have an end in sight. It never has an end in sight. And since 9/11, it's not going to have an end in sight. And we need to understand that as a country.
Because of Special Forces' global footprint, We have the ability to gather intel where a lot of our other organizations do not. By staying in small units all over countries and in the outskirts, in the places that no one else wants to go, we gather intel that is securing America as well as those host nation countries.
It's a global effort now. It's just like, stomping out small fires. If you run over and stomp on one, there's another one smoldering behind you. You got to be able to cover down on all of them simultaneously. It needs to be countered equally across all the theaters, and that's the challenge right there.
We're spread out throughout the entire world. I think Global Scout is a good word for it. We go and train foreign militaries anywhere in the world.
And SF is great at that. We're the only unit of regimental size that has globally gone out and been able to execute from conflict operations to security assistance type actions from the Philippines, Africa, Eastern Europe in some cases, the Balkans.
So we're in all of these countries, 70 or so I believe at last count, and we're developing these relationships with these foreign countries and keeping insurgencies from even happening. And I think once senators, congressmen, senior military, political leaders look at that, they realize that it actually does make a lot more sense to have a smaller, more professional, better trained force that is designed and focuses on counterinsurgency.
Historically, Special Forces has been in South America for quite some time. Down in Colombia, the FARC is listed on the terrorist watch list. It is a concern of the United States government. Cocaine in Colombia helps them finance the terrorism.
They use the money they get from the drug business to buy weapons and equipment that they need to fight, go help the Colombian army by providing them assistance, training, advice to combat the problem they have with drugs and narco-terrorism, to combat the guerrillas.
You talk to people in Bogota who really are so out of touch. No idea that the guerrillas walk into villages and kidnap children, make them soldiers. Now you start to see, they want to change. And I think you trip that back to SF guys spending time with the military down there and showing them that there is a different way. And if you can leverage that in other parts of the world, you might get the same results.
I saw it happen in El Salvador, Honduras, Colombia. Watch the final successes they have. It's very fulfilling. In Colombia, we've had a big impact.
Special Forces can influence our future and the future of these African nations by providing them military capability to better secure their regions and their borders.
We are learning a lot of skills. They are confident in themselves, taking our military to a higher level. At the end of this training, the soldier will have the basic skills to fight against the terrorism.
Stable African nations is in our best interest because it denies the terrorists safe havens for them to train and conduct operations from.
I'll build other teams around that Special Forces A team, put them in charge and put them in the lead like we've been doing in the Philippines. It's the force of choice and is the foundation for the indirect approach.
Once you can cause a division between the terrorists and their local population, that's when you start winning the counterinsurgency fight.
We've seen great stability in the piece that's really important, the sustainability. I really credit that to Special Forces, not SOF in general, but Special Forces in terms of getting the right forces there. There is a model that can be used and exported elsewhere. We would like to do a whole lot more with the Indonesian forces, so we look at it both geostrategically, geopolitically, two of the partners that we want to work with today and also well into the future.
We also have to recognize where we need to go to war and where we have to conduct operations in countries that we're not at war with. We don't have to be conducting operations in the Philippines the way we're conducting operations in Afghanistan and Iraq. Likewise in Colombia, likewise in the Pan-Sahel in Africa.
We have to be aware of what's going on in those countries that are friendly to us and minimize our footprint there in order to be successful. Otherwise, it's like a monster groping in the dark that can't find what he's looking for.
Provide them with assistance, helping their society, not just the military. Then they're less prevalent to have those terrorists there.
they're more willing to root them out.
Continue doing what we were doing in the past, which is going to these small countries and training their military. They've got the motivation. They don't